If you read the replies to any post by Netflix on Twitter or Instagram, overwhelmingly many of them are variations of the same rally cry, #save insert show name here. This used to be a cry you hear aimed at networks back in the day when beloved shows like Firefly were taken too soon. But when a streaming service like Netflix, which renewed pretty much everything early on in their original programming, started axing fan favorites like Sense8, Daredevil, and with an E and more, it just didn't make any sense. So what is the method to Netflix's madness? According to Wired, there are 3 factors Netflix considers when renewing a show: the cost to renew, the first month's viewership, and the show's audience growth potential. Let's start with the most obvious, the cost to renew. Money is the root of most business decisions, and of course it's no different here. Netflix looks at viewership and sees whether the cost of producing another season is proportional to the number of viewers the show has. And since Netflix doesn't release all of its ratings numbers, we'll have to take their word on how well or poorly a show is doing at that moment. And while both traditional TV networks and Netflix have to grapple with whether or not to renew a show, Netflix takes a different accounting approach, employing a cost-plus model where Netflix absorbs the entire cost of production plus a 30% premium for the production company. Networks usually split the production costs with a production company and shop the show around for other forms of distribution to make more money for producers. But since Netflix takes on the entire cost and doesn't share the show, that premium is used to attract producers like Ryan Murphy away from traditional and premium channels to make shows like Hollywood and Ratched. And according to Tom Harrington, an analyst at Ender's Analysis, those premiums go up with every season since the shows naturally become more expensive to produce with every renewal. So with the fact that they are carrying the cost of the show's entire budget on their backs, plus increasing costs at every season, Netflix needs to look at how instantly profitable these shows are to reason keeping them around. Secondly, Netflix looks at a few viewership data points. The first few data points are from the first 7 days and the first 28 days after a show is released. Within this time frame, Netflix first looks at starters, the term it uses to describe households who watch just one episode of a series. It then looks at completers, the term it uses to describe subscribers who finish an entire season. And since Netflix goes by a binge release model, it only makes sense that it wants to focus on how many people watch it in that time and how much of it they watch, whereas traditional networks release a season 1 episode a week. When Stranger Things premiered in 2016, the show got 14 million views in its first 35 days, according to Symphony Advanced Media. Then, according to Netflix, Season 2's premiere episode had 15.8 million viewers in the first 3 days, and Season 3 had 40 million viewers in the first week and 64 million viewers within the first month. But it's important to note that Netflix is not always transparent with its performance and only releases numbers when it wants to brag. The third viewership data point that Netflix looks at are the watchers, which are the total number of subscribers who watch an episode of the show. But these are more like your year-to-date viewers, so they're less important than the viewers who watch in the first month of the series release. And the last factor Netflix considers when renewing a show is audience growth potential. As Deadline explains, if a show hasn't grown significantly in popularity over seasons 2 or 3, then Netflix thinks that it is unlikely to gain any new viewers. And that doesn't necessarily mean that a show needs to be underperforming compared to its previous seasons. It could just plateau, and that's all the reason Netflix needs to kill it. So a show could be acceptably popular and have a large fan base, but if it lost its initial swell and doesn't bring in any new eyes, Netflix might be preparing to say goodbye to it. And that's what we can assume had happened to these shows that maintained a steady but dedicated base. A small but loyal fan base isn't as valuable to Netflix as the show's ability to be the can't-miss watch show of the month. So that's just some insight into how Netflix values a show and decides whether or not to renew it. Bottom line, it makes more sense for Netflix to greenlight new shows with potential instead of renewing a show that plateaus or underperforms. It's almost as if Netflix is teaching people that if you love something, love it hard and love it fast before it's gone, and binge your shows when they come out. What do you think of Netflix's methods for canceling shows? Let us know in the comments. And for more on Netflix, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.